Every time Pope Leo XIV leaves Castel Gandolfo, journalists are waiting at the door. No script, no prepared remarks, just questions shouted on the spot, and answers most people scroll right past. We went through hours of that footage and pulled out the 7 moments that matter most. Some are about war, some about migrants. One is the sharpest thing he's said all year about being pro-life. A few he says in Italian, so we'll translate them word for word. Let's get into it. First, on the schism of the Society of St. Pius X. On July 1st, the Society of St. Pius X, the traditionalist group founded by Archbishop Lefebvre back in the 1970s, formalized its separation from Rome. It's a wound that's been open for decades, but it was Pope Leo XIV who had to respond to it directly, on camera, walking to his car. What he said wasn't angry. It wasn't dismissive either. It was something more honest than either of those. Division among Christians is always a painful point, but they refuse to accept certain fundamental elements of the Church, beginning with several points of the Second Vatican Council, and that's the choice they've made. I'm sorry about it, but we have to move forward. Notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't pretend the split doesn't hurt, and he doesn't soften what's actually at stake, which is the Second Vatican Council itself. But he also doesn't slam the door. We have to move forward. Isn't resignation. It's a pope choosing not to let one schism define the whole Church's direction. Second, on Holy Week. This one was recorded during Holy Week, the days leading up to Easter. A journalist asked, almost in passing, how he was preparing for the feast. What came back wasn't a devotional soundbite. It was one of the most theologically loaded sentences he's said all year, and it's easy to miss if you're not paying attention. It's a time of peace, of much reflection. But as we all know, once again in the world, in so many places, we're seeing so much suffering, so many deaths, even innocent children. I want to invite all Christians, especially in these days, to recognize that Christ is still being crucified today. Christ is still suffering today in those who are suffering because of violence, hatred, and war. This is the theology of the cross applied in real time, not as a historical event 2,000 years ago, but as something happening right now in every war zone and refugee camp. It's a hard thing to say well without sounding like a slogan. He says it without flinching. Third, on the war in Gaza, a direct appeal to President Trump and Israel. This is one of the rare moments where Pope Leo XIV names a world leader directly. A journalist asked about President Trump's public comments on wanting to end the war. His answer wasn't just diplomatic language, it was a specific, direct appeal. I thought that President Trump recently stated that he would like to end the war. Hopefully, he's looking for a way to decrease the amount of violence of bombings, which would be a significant contribution to removing the hatred that's been created. So I would certainly continue to give this call to all leaders, to say, come back to the table to dialogue. Let's look at the solution of the problems. Popes are usually careful not to appear to be lobbying one head of state directly on camera. Here, he does it anyway, not to score a political point, but because he clearly sees the stakes as too high for diplomatic vagueness. Fourth, on the National Guard in Chicago, what his silence actually says. Pope Leo XIV is from Chicago. It's his hometown. So when a journalist asked him about President Trump sending 400 National Guard troops into that very city, everyone was listening closely for how he'd respond.
Holy Father,
Yes.
President Trump has sent 400 National Guard troops to your city, Chicago,
Yes.
against...
I prefer not to comment at this time about choices made, political choices within the United States. Thank you very much.
This isn't him dodging the question out of weakness. A pope who comments on every domestic policy decision in every country stops being a moral voice above the fray and starts being just another political actor. His restraint here, especially about his own hometown, is a deliberate choice, and it's worth understanding why. Fifth, on euthanasia in Illinois. Illinois, his home state, recently legalized euthanasia. He had already spoken privately with Governor Pritzker before the bill was signed. When a journalist raised it afterward, his answer was personal in a way his public statements rarely are.
We were very clear about the necessity to respect the sacredness of life from the very beginning to the very end. And unfortunately, for different reasons, he decided to sign that bill. I'm very disappointed about that. I would invite all people, especially in these Christmas feast days, to reflect upon the nature of human life, the goodness of human life. God became human like us to show us what it means really to live human life. And I hope and pray that the respect for life will once again grow in all moments of human existence, from conception to natural death. Thank you.
This isn't a press release from the Vatican. It's a man talking about a law that was signed in the state where he grew up, after he personally tried to talk the governor out of it. That's a different kind of weight. Sixth, on being pro-life, the sharpest line of the year. This question came up around the controversy over an award given to a U.S. senator known for supporting legal abortion. It's the kind of question built to trap a pope into a predictable, partisan-sounding answer. He didn't take the bait for either side.
It's important to look at many issues that are related to what is the teaching of the Church. Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them, but I would ask first and foremost that there be greater respect for one another and that we search together both as human beings, in that case as American citizens or citizens of the state of Illinois, as well as Catholics, to say we need to really look closely at all of these ethical issues and to find the way forward as church. Church teaching on each one of those issues is very clear.
This is, hands down, the line in this whole compilation most likely to make people uncomfortable, on purpose, on both sides. He refuses to let pro-life become a label that only applies to one issue. If you've ever wondered what a genuinely consistent pro-life ethic sounds like instead of a political slogan, this is it. Seventh, on migrants and dignity, neither open borders nor cruelty. With immigration enforcement a constant flashpoint in the United States, a journalist asked him directly about statements from American bishops criticizing detention and deportation practices.
I think we have to look for ways of treating people humanely, treating people with the dignity that they have. If people are in the United States illegally, there are ways to treat that. There are courts. There's a system of justice. I think there are a lot of problems in the system. No one has said that the United States should have open borders. I think every country has a right to determine who and how and when people enter. But when people are living good lives, and many of them for 10, 15, 20 years, to treat them in a way that is extremely disrespectful, to say the least, and there's been some violence, unfortunately, I think that the bishops have been very clear in what they said, and I think that I would just invite all people in the United States to listen to them.
He holds two things at once that usually get treated as opposites: a country's right to control its borders, and the basic dignity owed to people who've been living quietly, working, raising families for decades. That nuance almost never survives in a headline. 7 moments, no teleprompter, no press release, just a man answering questions on his way to a car. And if there's one thing that connects all of them, it's this. Pope Leo XIV doesn't seem interested in giving the answer that makes one side comfortable. He keeps pointing back to the same thing, the dignity of the person in front of him, whether that's a migrant, a senator, a victim of war, or a journalist just trying to get a soundbite. If this video helped you notice something you would have scrolled past otherwise, that's exactly what this channel is for. Taking what the Pope actually says and making it a little clearer, a little more accessible, for anyone trying to follow what's happening in the Church today. Thank you for watching, for subscribing, and for every comment you leave. That support is honestly the biggest reason I get to keep doing this. Thank you, all of you.